Hello to everyone. It's August 5th, and thank you, Lord, for your goodness. Thank you, Lord, for your power. And I just want to say over and over, repetition is good for us. And so, why am I
That's
saying
right.
that? I had a dream about a month ago about Psalm 91, and I didn't actually realize back then just how significant I believe that this is for us to pray, meditate on this daily. Can I put that out there? Pray, meditate, Psalm 91 daily, just many different factors, many different people, individuals, situations. I just believe that this is a highlighted chapter. It's always amazing. But for us to continue to pray protection, even over all of us who stand with Israel, pray for Israel, and all things that way. I'm so excited that Ayelet is on. It'd be great. Ayelet, one of the things, like somebody who I really respect and knows a lot about Israel, says that this whole board of peace, for example, in Gaza, that, it seems like Netanyahu is saying, like, I never even agreed to all of this. And this individual, I don't want to, put their name out, but just really talked about they were not convinced in any way that all the negotiations that Jared Kushner have been doing is actually good for Israel. As a matter of fact,
Yeah,
not necessarily good for Israel at all. And I'm sure that you guys are happy not to be at war, but at the same time, having another deal made
that's
with the
true.
Iranian regime is just like, oy vey, it's like, wouldn't it be great to just finish the job? So complicated, I realize, but love to get your perspective and how you're all doing. And if you came on late,
Yeah,
I was just congratulating her on the wedding
I
of her son, Jonathan.
that's
Go ahead.
right. I absolutely agree with Netanyahu on this, and many Israelis, that there
Uh,
is a feeling like the modern progressive world does not understand that you have to end wars with victory. And if you don't,
yes.
somebody is a winner, it's just not you. And the thing is now with Netanyahu that he demands, he is really insisting completely about Gaza, it's called the demilitarization. In Hebrew, it's called Peruz of
Mm,
Gaza, like that Hamas will absolutely give down their weapon and surrender. It doesn't mean that they won't hold on to some, they have, Hamas is in charge of a lot of things in Gaza. They have the Ministry of Education, they have all these things. But as far as weapons, a complete surrendering of the weapon. Now, America right now is pressuring Israel to not make that a basic demand, like an all-out demand. And
mm.
Netanyahu insists on that, and I believe he's right, because if not, we will just continue to see what we have seen so far. And it's just, a return of the war, that front again and again and again. Same thing in Lebanon. People think that Lebanon, that Hezbollah is, is that Israel was victorious over Hezbollah. It's not true at all. There is constant battles in Lebanon. I know
Yeah.
from not just my kids, that are both on the ground, some of them, and some in the Air Force, but all over the news, the people up north, some of them did not return yet to their homes, and they cannot, because they're bombing, they're sending, those unmanned aircraft and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's all the time, all the time. So the retaliation of Israel is strong, and America would like to achieve, quiet in the Middle East. And right now, Netanyahu is insisting on that.
Mhm.
He won't stop unless more Hezbollah targets will be destroyed. And I just want to say, in the last 2 months, we got this, it's in the news, you read it in Israel, that over 800 stations of terror cells, they act within terror cells, within villages, within houses in villages, were destroyed in Lebanon.
Wow.
And the
Wow.
citizens are away, and our citizens, some of them cannot return and did not return. I mean, there are villages up north of Israel that are suffering really badly. But Israel won't stop until there would be enough, that activity, terror activity, will stop.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult thing. I just want to add to that there's something going on right now in the media, in the news, and everything. That Israel, a few years ago, Israel made a law that UNRWA cannot be active in Israel. UNRWA activity and UNRWA agency. Do you know what UNRWA is?
Yes.
UNRWA is the UN agency that deals specifically with the refugee, what they call refugee problem of the Palestinians. So
Yeah.
Israel does not allow UNRWA activity to be active in Israel. And right now it's up at the High Court of Israel, and it's been talked a lot in the news because, of course, there's some also Israelis on the left side of the map that are saying, UNRWA has a right to be active in Israel. And it's a big thing. It's going to go up to the highest court, and we'll see what will happen. And it's very interesting. Israel is a very democratic country. People forget that many times. If they win in the high court, then UNRWA will be active in Israel, and the law will be reversed. So it's a big thing, and there is a lot of debates and all that about that. I want to say we are in a special time right now in the summer. This is something more local. It's called, in the religious world, it's called Ben Azmanim. Ben Azmanim is a term in Yiddish and in Hebrew that means between the times. And between the times, it's when the ultra-Orthodox, they take a break from their yeshivas studies. It starts with the 9th of the month of Av fasting. The 9th of Av is commemorating the destruction of the temple. And then it goes back 3 weeks after, and then they're on vacation. They're going on vacations from their yeshivas. And 3 weeks later, they're back in their yeshiva studies. And what happens is that at the moment, as I speak to you right now in Yad HaShmona, we have tons of families. I mean, tens and sometimes hundreds of families of ultra-Orthodox people that are on vacation. Many of them don't have a car, so they're walking by foot. And many of them love to come and visit Yad HaShmona. So they're coming to play at the playground and to see, we have a goat farm and we have horses in Yad HaShmona. And for them, Yad HaShmona is like this little heaven, only 15 minutes walk from the ultra-Orthodox town. And they love to come to Yad HaShmona. And for some reason, we're becoming more and more popular, especially now because so many of them are on vacation. And I have to say that on one hand, it's extremely annoying because they come with lots of children and they don't, trash everywhere and stuff like that. And the other side of it is that we get a chance to speak to so many of them. It's unbelievable. They come to Yad HaShmona, they know we're believers, and mothers talk to mothers, and we have this free give and take books by the Yad HaShmona office. They take books, they take New Testaments. It's a free thing. They can come and take. Nobody will see that they're taking. So it's kind of special. And Israel right now is at our area, is extremely hot. Everybody's sweating and hot. Yeah. And you see this ultra-Orthodox people with their black outfits and all that. We're far from crazy about them, but we know that we need to do what we need to do. And God is using even that. Wow. And I am an emotional person. I go between being extremely upset and telling some families, what's going on? Pick up your trash. Don't you see that to really having, compassion for them and talking to them and all that. It's not an easy thing.
That's really powerful. I since you brought them up, I'd like to ask you a question because I was just reading that there's some who are, sounding alarms saying that the education system in Israel is going down because, for example, at the yeshiva or Orthodox, they study so much of the yeshiva or the Bible that they don't actually do as good of a job on the ABCs. Is that true, or is that just some?
It is true. The ultra-Orthodox, they have their own funded. It's called the rabbinical educational system. That's, by the way, that's one of the big things that come up before voting. Everybody speaks about that because Israel, the government, or at least the, central more parties would like to force them to take English and math and computers, basic education that we think they should study. And they're bringing a big fight on not studying those subjects. And then what happens is you have among them people, and by the way, a lot of them are very intelligent. You see, they're young people. They can study, the Torah. They study, not in vain. They make up very good lawyers usually, but then they don't have basic knowledge. And they don't go to the military, which the military is a very good place to study technologies and all that. So they start in the market with a huge disadvantage that the rabbis are not dealing with. So yes, it's a big issue, and you're right. Our secular systems and the what we call national religious are doing relatively well. I don't think Israel is in a very good place, but relatively okay. But the ultra orthodox is bringing the percentage down, bringing the you know how every year you have exams that you check all the children, and then you come up with a average. So they're bringing the average of Israel down. If you
Wow.
took out the ultra orthodox, the average is much higher. But
That's what this report was. Okay, thank you for unpacking that. Okay, another
yeah.
thing I want to ask you, because this is big news, and so help us understand. The hikers in Judea and Samaria. I know it's a little bit like old news, and yet they're doing an investigation. It just sounds like they royally messed up, correct? Like you have to get permission to go into that kind of hike. Just tragic. Two lovely, soldiers died because of that. Just a comment on that, if you don't mind.
Yes, that's right. Look, going into Judea and Samaria for an Israeli is a very dangerous thing. People
Mm,
don't realize how dangerous that is for us, for me. If I entered by accident today with my car, crossed into Judea and Samaria, and ended up in a small village, we can be stoned to death within 10 minutes. And it's not a joke because
wow.
it happened to a lot of people. It happened to a lot of people. Now, there is among the Palestinians there are some people who are really trying to stop this behavior of the
Mhm.
Hamas and those. Why? Because they make money from the Israelis. They would love Israelis to return. Um,
Okay.
they're excellent technicians and car fixers, and they have good vegetables and all these things that in the past Israelis loved to go into the territories and buy from them.
Mm,
Right now, there is a crisis in Judea and Samaria, and what happened is that those people entered. They took a hike, and the big problem many times with people who are religious, they Israeli religious, I mean Jewish side,
yes.
they decide to go into the territories as a statement. They say, "Oh, it's ours, so we
Oh,
will go on a tour and we will take a hike, and nobody will tell us." But it doesn't work
oh,
this way. And so what happened
wow.
was that four Palestinians, by the way, four Palestinians were also killed in that incident. So it's not
Okay.
just the Israelis, also them. They began a fight and among them, and they killed the two IDF soldiers. It's a terrible thing. Um,
Wow.
so
So,
I don't, it's
so,
on investigation. I don't know if they initiated it in any way, the soldiers. I'm not saying they did. It's actually very nice young people, those two that went in.
yeah.
But
Very
yeah,
unnecessary, unnecessary.
very
Okay.
unnecessary.
Wow,
Very.
so helpful. And then just tell us how so you mentioned about the Orthodox, but how is your family? Like we're praying for your kids, the ones that are the reservists, by the way. I keep hearing just the drain on these, these incredible reservists. So I know you have some family in reserve duty too. How is it all going for your family, extended family?
It's a terrible drain. Like you said,
Mhm.
I don't know what's the term. I see it on their faces. I
Yeah.
can. My son-in-law Tal is at the end of law studies, final exams.
Hmm.
He missed some of the most important, preparations for the finals because he went on reserve duty. Then he comes back. Then there is a special program for those who were on reserve duty. But he's a higher commander. So, I mean, he says that by now, like he has no, this is what he tells us. He says, I have no energy for this thing anymore. You go between, being in school, working, providing for your family, and then constantly going to the headquarters of where he is serving. It's a big toll, big toll. And the worst thing for the young people is that they don't see an end to this. In the past, we would have some, like a war or what we call an operation, and you would know that it ends at some point.
Yeah.
Right now in Israel, the feeling is that there is no horizon. It doesn't feel like it's ending. And same thing for Oriya. Oriya was for 2 months now in Lebanon,
Mm,
lost a friend in his unit from a terrorist that
mm,
surprised them. And same thing, he says it's extremely difficult. And he says he sees it also on his soldiers. He's a commander, and many times, the commanders are always coming with a higher
mm.
motivation and energy and commitment to the cause. But when you see the young soldiers, they don't, it's a destruction of their businesses and careers and studies and all that. So they take it harder. And many of them request, you can make a special appeal to request not to come to a reserve duty on this round. But the commanders need to constantly check if it's extremely important that they don't come, like an emergency, or should they force them? And he says that it's a lot of pressure on him.
Wow.
Some of them have to come from abroad if they, left. It's a big thing. The reserve duty in Israel is very different than what you are familiar with in America. It's not people who are professional. That's what they do. Serve. It's an extra.
Right. I see. Yeah, it is different. Definitely different.
Yes. It's now it's at the same time the state is trying to make it up for them. And for example, we have in Israel a project. It's called Apartments for Young Families. That young families who have been, young couples who have been serving, one of them, more than, let's say, 300 days in the last 2 years, they get a discount. It's specific it's a government housing project specifically targeting people like that. Now, but if you know, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but in Israel, apartments are so extremely expensive that many times those young people that will so-called have a discount of, let's say, 5%, they don't have the money to actually buy an apartment at this point, at this stage. So it always goes together. The government says, yes, we're trying to figure out or give you some rights. At the same time, rights is something you have to take if you can. So yeah, it's not
yeah. Sorry, go ahead. It's not.
No, I'm just saying that I look at my children and they are from the higher motivated, how do you say, military service people in the country, from the higher bracket of motivated people. And I see on them sometimes the breaking points, where they say, we can't take it anymore. But they have someone to rely on. And I think about people who are not believers or don't have God with them. It's very difficult.
Oh my goodness. It was last weekend, the weekend before this past weekend, that 2 female IDF soldiers, while in duty, committed suicide.
Yes.
So this is still a very real thing for us to be praying into, correct? Like the trauma and all what you're describing.
You're right. And just a while ago, Daniel and I sat and we decided to read about Vietnam War, which I haven't done for many years. And the reason we went into that, people are beginning to talk about the Vietnam War. You know so much about that. Yeah. The biggest issue, and this is why people are kind of saying, look at the back and forth, is that things drag. When things continue, more and more and more people die, and more people, and a little bit here, and it's a very difficult, it creates such a morale issue among the people. And it was very interesting for me to go through the history of the Vietnam War, and I just couldn't believe it. What a story. What a history you have. What a heritage you guys have with this war. And that's the biggest problem at the moment.
I just want to make a quick comment, onto her, Ayelet's comment about the IDF also being a training place. Some of these, most everybody on the screen knows that we've just had, it was 9 or 10 people from Israel at what's called JH Ranch up in northern. I was just there. Anyways, we were doing this very fun whitewater rafting with them. They were having a blast. We went into the water at one point, and it was super fun. A lot of us who were, work for JH Israel, we were linking arms with the Israelis and saying, this is a sign, Jew and Gentile, and American, Canadian, and Israeli, and it was great fun. Then we started to drift over to this big boulder, and I was on the side that was about to hit this boulder. So I had pushed the one Israeli away, so then we broke the chain kind of thing. But then, oh my goodness, this much shorter than me girl from Israel came and just did whatever maneuver she did, but I was right out of the way of the boulder. And it was like, I was thinking, that had to be an IDF training. And then when you're trying to get into the rafts after you've been in the water, it's a little tough. Like you're supposed to.
Yes, it is.
Well, this tiny little 5'0" person, the Israeli gal, who's, she just took a hold of my life jacket. and threw me into the boat. And I was so shocked. I was like, what?
Yeah,
I said, that has to be another IDF move, which she said it was because she learned it in the IDF. I realized,
yeah,
there's other things that you learn in the IDF, but my point was I was impressed. Like I was
yeah.
impressed by just their survival skills, if you will, or it
I
made,
agree. I think Israeli girls are tough.
whoa,
Tougher than other girls. I mean,
yeah,
they're feminine at all, but you can see this edge of toughness in them if
yeah,
they're faced with a problem. If they're faced with a problem,
right,
and I
right.
don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually
No,
quite
I,
good.
I was
And
shocked. I was shocked by their strength because I mean I'm a lot taller than they are.
yeah,
I want to show you guys something real quick. By the way, I put it in the chat about Yad
nice
Shmina.
story.
Great, great place to sow. Okay, Yad Shmina, it's right there in the chat. I also want to
Thank
draw
you.
attention to one quick thing. Is yesterday's CBN. CBN, boy, do they ever stand with Israel, by the way. I yell at just every day.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's millions and millions and millions of people that watch them
Yes.
worldwide. But they talked about Israeli bonds or, so if you're looking for investments as well, like you're looking to invest money, boy, consider that because this is where you're investing in Israel, even getting returns. And what they were saying is really shockingly going through this war. Yes, there's people that are struggling individually, but as a whole, Israel's economy is actually not doing too badly.
You
So
are completely right. That's
it's a,
true.
it's incredible. It's God. It's got to be God.
Yeah.
And then I'm just throwing this other one out more as a personal thing. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys are aware, but this is my daughter Glory, who lives in what's called East Wenatchee. This is in Washington State. Check this out. East Wenatchee now holds the record for the worst air quality ever recorded in the United States in history. So look at this parameters right down here to the far right. So in other words, we have a lot of these wildfires that are still affecting America. That's
Yes.
another thing for another day, but it's good to pray into too that these wildfires would stop. So I'm like, get out.
I
Anyway,
just want to say,
yeah,
I just want
go.
to say quickly about the economic situation. You're right
Yes,
that the Israeli market, for some reason, is doing so good in
incredible.
the war and after the war. Now, the thing is, it's a bit deceiving because the
Okay.
market is extremely influenced by the high tech companies. Israel is very big on technologies
Right,
and high
right,
tech and all that. So those are pulling the market high because Israelis are very innovative in their natural state. A lot of innovation, but the
right.
general public, or what we call the average, is not enjoying it so much. So it's kind of a joke. It's an Israeli joke when you say that the
Ah,
market is doing well. Well, people are saying, "Well, they didn't measure me." That's the joke.
okay.
People are saying, "Oh, they never asked me if the market is doing well."
Okay, that's
There
a
is a
good
bit
point.
of a difference, but you're right. It's quite surprising.
Wow, wow, wow. That really is so helpful. Honestly,